Good morning, beautiful people across this great land. As we get Thursday, May 14th, we are excited to bring you the high five. Today, we're going to talk about, hey, there's this thing out there people are calling the Covid Surcharge. Is that some kind of virus, or what other virus we need to learn about? Is it taking business? Is it going to cause problem with our payments business? We're going to have a little, in case you missed it to start out, just in case Danny and Brian have missed some of these videos that are out there. I'd like to make sure they're fully up and aware. We're going to turn them into pop culture experts. We're going to talk about how do you make this proposal and presentation when you've worked with your leads, you've talked to people. How do you do proposals and presentations? How do you get that yes? Do it with a ring, seal it. That's the way you do it. That and more right here in the high five. Let's get this going.
The time has come, the questions are said, opinions hide, discussions are led, a show about nothing and everything, it's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and marketing. Time for the high five. We've got it all covered. It's time for the high five. We've got it all covered, yeah. The high five.
That's right, everybody. It's time for the high five, and I'm Nate Manahan. I am here, nestled among the weeds of Indianapolis as the rain comes. The storms just went through. We're hoping for a sun that will come probably next week, but we're proud to be here in the Hoosier State. And also sharing the great air of the Hoosier State, just a couple hours north from me. He is the man who wears a hat backwards to keep his hair from flowing back behind him because he doesn't want us to feel bad about how his hair is better than ours. Mr. Brian Linke. How are you, Brian?
I'm well, Nate. I've had better intros than that from you, but I'll take it. I guarantee you Danny's is going to be better, and then I won't hear the end of it for the rest of today. But no, things are good here. It's raining, it's cold, and it's Indiana.
It is. All right. And as I say, this is my challenge every morning. I do not plan these intros. In fact, I have no idea what I'm about to say about the other person on the screen. So we just see what happens, and it's a challenge, and I'm going to get better and better each day. And, eventually I'll become a professional. Maybe I'll prepare ahead of time. I always prepare. So, and then on the left-hand side of the screen, he is from Colorado. That means he's, 7,000 feet in the air. He's just a little bit closer to God today than the rest of us because he is just higher and he's elevated because he's got that Colorado high. Mr. Danny Shard, how are you, sir?
That was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't like hair flowing like Brian. You kind of had me with that one, but it's a beautiful day in Colorado. Happy to be on here with you fellas.
Oh, it's a good day to, do some things a little different sometimes. So today I went out last night and I thought, okay, I may be a person of the YouTube sometimes, and I like to dive into the YouTube comments, and I like to dive into the YouTube world out there. I may be 43, but I like to act like I'm 22 sometimes, and not in a creepy way, don't get there. But I try to see, okay, what are the videos out there that haven't quite hit? There are the music videos that are going to get 33 million views in the U.S., and there's going to hit, and then they're going to be at 100 million, and boom. But I like to see, okay, what's out there? So I saw a comedian. I was like, hey, he put a new 2-minute video out there. This is what I'm going to bring. So, gentlemen, I need to bring the microphone up so you can hear it here in a second. And here is today's, in case you missed it. Kevin James, boys.
I saw this.
Oh, you saw this? Oh,
I did see this.
Look at Danny Shard. Have you seen this, Brian Linke?
I have not.
All right.
This is hilarious.
This is right, okay?
Marcus.
7. Might do another 7, you know? Yeah. I don't want to hold you up. Let's grab dinner sometime.
It's like Brian Linke doing 7 miles.
Absolutely. I mean,
Hi, yeah. I got a couple handshakers right in front of me. Okay, sir, are they still in the minute? Yeah, I'm staring at them right now.
run.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. How do we think? Okay, I'm pretty sure Brian Linke hadn't seen it. I didn't look at Danny Shard catching something in there that's going. Whoops, I got to get my video off there. So, Brian Linke, what do you think? Kevin James, I thought, first of all these home videos that are out there right now, everybody's putting it together. I was sharing one with my kids from Monk because my 2 older kids, I watched the whole series of Monk, and they did one. Everybody's doing the quarantine video. Parks and Rec did that. This one is full production value. What do you think, Brian Linke?
I think I better go out and buy a mask.
It is.
That's what I think. I think pulling my shirt up over my face as I'm walking through the grocery store is not going to work.
Oh, that is the go-to. If you've ever spent any time with Brian Linke, hey, he loves to make sure that you know that he still has abs at age 106. And
Wow.
So he will pull his shirt up. It's perfect for a face mask, but it may not work in the grocery store. And but here's a question I have: is this thinking what this reminded me of the shaming culture right now. I went into Whole Foods really quickly. I was downtown Indianapolis. There's a Whole Foods back with the original, right at the location of the original Market Square Arena. And I walked into the Whole Foods, and they're handing out masks. And if you didn't take one, I brought my own disposable. But if you didn't take one, the eyes were on you right away. And there is a shaming culture. I don't know that it's a bad thing, but it's certainly up there. Is it true there in Warsaw, Indiana, and Glenwood Springs?
Well, I know that the Menards here, if you don't have a mask, you can't get in. Yeah. I know that. But I haven't really seen, and the grocery stores here, it's kind of a hit and miss kind of a thing. I mean, I think the workers there, most of them are wearing, if not all of them are wearing masks, but the people that are in there are probably, I would say it's 50-50.
Yep. Well, I've wondered also to myself if, what will happen to me when I get back with people. And when we're in those first groups and because my go-to, hey, what's up? Hug, give a little dap up, handshake to someone I'm first meeting. I'm gonna have to reprogram myself. I already know it, and I haven't had to put myself in. And it's gonna be just like Kevin James there was like, hey, good to see you. And it's that look. And have you guys been in situations, Danny? I know you're out golfing. Are you guys dapping up and doing your usual?
We're not shaking hands or anything, but we're fist bumping, and I feel like things are pretty normal. But the shaming, and I think it's funny that there's a label on it, but it's so true. This shaming culture, it's absolutely real. It's happening all over here. And I'm guilty of it. And I think I've said this before, when we're talking about our reopen guide and, people needing reminders. I'm the one that needs the reminder, I think, more than anybody, because you get me out and going into the store, it's just normal. And I'm like, oh, I forgot my mask, or I see somebody and I do the same thing. I immediately go in, hey, how are you? And hug and do the thing. And they're like, hey, stay away from me. So you get some funny looks when you're out in public whenever you're doing things like that.
It is. All right. Well, gentlemen, we are going to go to
I love that video, though. That's hilarious.
It was. I mean, he put a lot of production into that. That wasn't just, yeah. I mean, that was just for a little 2-minute clip for Kevin James. Number 2. The COVID surcharge. Okay, it certainly hit in the last 2 days. If you're on Twitter, it was trending nationally across the U.S. for a little while. People have started putting a line item through their point of sale systems. It's the business that Brian, Danny, and I are in. And they are starting to put this little line item that just simply says COVID surcharge. And so there became this controversy because this one guy, I think it was in Missouri, put the COVID surcharge, which it just sounds a little almost I don't know, dirty or something, and put the line item COVID surcharge and put a price, I think it was $3 or whatever. The guy puts it on and said, hey, I had no idea, what is this COVID surcharge and doing? Well, in our world, we do things called cash discounting. We do surcharging. We sometimes call it the EDGE program in our branded names. And I was thinking, hey, what does this do? Because businesses right now, there was a whole documentation here. And what was interesting is, I don't know if you guys read through it at all or looked it up. What I would say the trend was, as long as you can tell me why you're doing it and tell me ahead of time, everybody was fine about it. The problem was, this one person didn't know, and suddenly, 6 million retweets later, it becomes a major trend, and this business is having a defensive, and the local ABC station showing up, and it shows up on the ABC Natural News because this person charged the one person an extra $3 to try to make up for some food costs that they had to have to keep up with what's going on instead of raising the price on each menu item. Gentlemen, what do you think? Danny, have you seen any of this, and how do you think as we're going out? We certainly think we are pro small business owner, and any way to try to help. But as consumer, there's got to be a lot of disclosures, right?
There does. I mean, I see this as an opportunity. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it on a big scale. And I think, this is an opportunity for a lot of our partners to better educate merchants on the proper ways of doing it, as opposed to just implementing this random line item. I do think, and I've said this on things before, like yesterday we did our big EDGE overview again to make sure partners were aware of everything that's available and how to sell it and all these things. And I think this is an opportunity for people to educate merchants, right? And adding a line item on there just isn't enough, right? You've got to have some consumer disclosures. You got to have some signage. You can't just add things. I know people are going to be more sensitive to this, which is another reason why EDGE and cash discount is going to be so popular. But merchants can't make money taking payments. And really, these merchants that are just adding these line items, they're doing it in a percentage and in a way that is going to eliminate their fees. But in fact, it's also going to help them make money, creating a revenue stream for them on their payment processing. So this is an opportunity for partners to identify if the merchants are doing that and educate them on the proper way to do it, and offsetting fees, disclosing it to consumers, and still eliminating processing fees, but doing it the right way.
Brian, I know you do this with a lot of your merchants, and what are, oops, sorry, we're getting some audio cutting in there. What are some of the ways that you are able to help your merchants disclose how to rebound some costs? Because there are extra costs that are going on, and we talk about it in the credit card processing, but there may be extra costs. Hey, there are food costs right now that are different, especially there are some meat costs that are different and things like that. And things, how do you make sure that your customers know how important disclosures are?
Well, it's definitely important. And I think the biggest difference with this, though, that we haven't really touched on, our program, the EDGE program that we're offering, is a cash discount program. So the customer actually has a choice to pay cash, right? And if they pay cash, the price is X, and if they pay with a credit card, then they're paying the 4% fee. So the difference between adding a $3 charge onto a receipt at the end that's not cash discounting. That's adding a $3 charge onto the
surcharging. That's exactly.
That's surcharging. That's adding a $3 charge onto the receipt. What we're offering is a cash discount program, right? Where yeah, okay, you want to come in with a pocket full of cash and pay with cash? Hey, we're more than happy to take your cash, right? But and with my merchants, I've told a lot of my restaurant owners to not only trying to sell them on the cash discount program, because again in Warsaw, Indiana, it's a little slower to take off because everybody's scared to do it. I think once we get one or two of them to do it, and I think it's going to happen, I think everybody else will follow suit. But what I've done is I've told a lot of my people to just raise their prices too. I mean, for example, you walk into a Mexican restaurant and the margaritas are $6.25 to go to $6.75. I don't think anybody bats an eye, right? But when you try to you talk to them about cash discount, the 4% onto the it's not even close to that much money. So yeah, I just think that the difference here is One's a surcharge, and our program is, again, you have the option to pay cash.
I love how these guys, they absolutely are always zoned in on making sure in our industry and knowing the differences here. I think one of the things I was taking about this, they were using this word as a surcharge because at the end of the day, it's about disclosures of that there are different prices and making sure that consumer consent and that consumers truly know what they're getting. Because what everybody hates is they walk out, and this happens, you go through the drive-through with the kids and you order a bunch of stuff and you go through and you're like, wow, we're missing 2 meals here. What happened? And you go through and you go pull up the receipt and you're like, oh, I did pay for them and I didn't get it. And then you look at the receipt a little closer and you're like, man, what's this thing that I didn't ask for? And I paid another $4. And you think, and it's making sure that when you look at the receipt, it all makes sense to you and you got what you knew you were going to get ahead of time. And making sure you have that clear communication. What we're going to see is that I think this says is that this is in the lexicon of what people are talking about. Small and medium businesses realize that if they communicate clearly, yesterday we talked about clear communication, their consumers, their customers are willing to come to them and pay a little bit extra for certain things, including to take some of the fees that have to go to the credit cards that Visa and MasterCard are going to charge them to be able to take those instead of just always the business paying for it. Those are some of the things that we're going to do. Moving on to number 3 today, I'm going to move on. Danny Sharp. There is a golf tournament. We teased it just a little bit yesterday, and okay, it's not a tournament, a exhibition, but there's some major money on it. Can you tell us a little bit about this thing going on in Seminole down in South Florida on Sunday?
It's amazing. Obviously it's for charity. Shout out to the Seminoles, by the way, right? You gotta love that. Gotta love that link. The inventor of the tomahawk chop right there. It's an amazing golf course, a really cool venue. Obviously, there's not going to be any fans, but it's going to be really entertaining with the group they've got. They've got Ricky Fowler, Matt Wolf, who's kind of the new guy on the scene. He's got this funky swing. You got to see it. If you haven't, YouTube Matt Wolf, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then you got Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, just 2 heavyweights in golf, and it's going to be really entertaining. They're going to hit bombs. They're going to trash talk each other, and people are going to like to see it again. And I think you're going to see a ton of viewers tuning into this. It's going to be a fun match, and all the money goes to charity. I don't know the exact number, but it's millions.
It is millions. I think it's going to be fun just to see how this all works out when it comes to how much we get, because they're all going to be mic'd up. There's only 2 of the broadcasters on the course. So, and I'm assuming there's going to be a delay, but I just want to see some banter between these guys. What are they thinking? What do they do when they're playing this isn't a PGA event. But there's not money in their pocket, but it's their pride. And I hope that there are some people who are a little more talking, a little more out there. I can't wait to see what that is, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, all these guys want to do is beat each other. And I think that's where the first match, like Tiger and Phil, failed miserably at the banter, at the going back and forth. Phil's like the ultimate trash talker, and he didn't do a good job last time whenever they played in Vegas. So I think this is going to kind of get these guys going. We're going to see some really good smack talking going on between them. It's going to be funny. It's going to be fun to watch. And then kind of tee it up for the bigger event, in my opinion, later this month with Tiger, Phil, Peyton, Tom Brady. That's going to be the epic match, and where we should see the funniest smack talking of all time. So
I totally agree. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this all works out. Brian,
I'm going to get Brian Linke watching it.
Brian Linke, I think you and I golf about the same amount. But how much are you going to turn this on Sunday?
Nate, first of all, I'm going to tell you right now, I will beat you in golf. Okay, that I will tell you. Okay, number 2, here, you know what? Let me ask you this, Dan. So on Sundays, Ricky Fowler wears the all orange, right?
He does
on Sunday, right? So that's kind of like another kind of a thing. I enjoy watching golf, and I can tell you this: yes, I will be watching it. Hopefully, I'll be out at the pool watching it if it's not raining. But because I think it's supposed to be above, 60 degrees this weekend. But no, I think the world is ready to watch some competition.
Yes.
Right? No matter what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I will be watching. I think a lot of people will be watching. I think it's going to be a a fun thing to get this whole competition thing working. And I'm actually, you're going to Major League Baseball. I've heard some really good things there. I don't think there's going to be anybody in the stands watching the games, but I think they're going to play.
I think you're totally right. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I think there is going to be some playing, and it's just going to be fun. We're going to watch some golf. And Brian Linke, when we are back on, you and me, Danny Shard's going to be our caddy, and we'll go head to head. I haven't golfed in 2 years, so we'll take a little competition.
I am
here.
in on this. I'll have a $6.75 margarita as well.
Absolutely. Okay, let me think. I'm pretty confident with my. I guess Nate Manahan. Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, jeez. All right, Brian Linke, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. All right, number 4 today, the Paper Tech Reopen Guide. So one of the things that we're seeing is the big, box stores have been doing this because those, especially the essentials, the grocery stores, the things like that, have been doing this the whole time. But having to monitor the employee health monitoring and make sure that their employees that are there are healthy and going through checklists. And so I know from talking to some people that are going through this, like they walk in and they have to walk in one at a one. There's a person that's 6 feet, usually behind, if there's a glass or something, and they answer a series of questions. A good portion of them have to take their temperature. And as you guys are thinking about this as having staff and employees, especially, how important is making sure that your employees are following good health structures and that they're healthy so that your customers can stay healthy?
Well, Danny works in an office with 2 other people, so I don't think it pertains as much to him as it does to me. But I think we're gonna. I think Billy West is actually working on it right now, putting together some type of checklist, right? To where you walk in the door, you have to take your temperature, you have to do this, you have to do that, and everybody has to wash their hands. And I think there's going to be more signage and just things like that. I found it actually interesting, because I've been going to a lot of doctors and dentists here as of late, and I had to do the same thing. I had to take my temperature, I had to sign this thing. The crazy thing was, though, they made me sign a thing with a bunch of pens in this jar. And I grabbed the pen that about 1,000 other people had already touched. So it's kind of they wanted me to sign the waiver form just in case something happened. But I think Paper Tech. When I get back, we'll on Monday we'll see something. As a matter of fact, I was there this weekend, and I've never seen the refrigerator look any cleaner than what it is now. I'll tell you that.
So, Danny, for our customers and our merchants that are across the U.S. And more importantly, our partners who are talking to them, how do you recommend, as we think through this, them encouraging their employees, how important that is? Because, let's be honest, something happens, you let a sick employee infect your customers, that's going to be a really bad case. So what are the things you're hearing that some of the people are doing to make sure that people are healthy?
Yeah, and you're going to have some of that, merchants all over are going to have these employees that are just eager to get back to work. And, bottom line, these employers are going to have to say, look, if you don't feel right, you can't come in here. And you're going to have people, unfortunately, that are going to say, I feel fine, when they really don't, right? Just because they want to get out of the house and they think they're okay, but they're going to be, at risk of infecting others, possibly. But I think just like Brian said, right, it's just about taking extra precautions, and people have to just be honest as we go through this. I don't think there's anything else other than that. You got to rely on people and make sure that they're being honest and upfront with you. Merchants all over. I agree with what Brian's saying. I just don't think that merchants all over are going to be able to take people's temperatures before they come to work. It's just not going to happen. But those extra precautions need to be taken. You can't have a bowl of pens sitting around that everybody uses.
Right.
It's just there's so many things like that make sense over here but not over here. It's just really odd. So it's just about consistency all across the board, and just asking everybody to stay safe. And I think you're going to see the what'd you call it, Nate? The shaming culture.
Yep.
I think that actually needs to needs to happen, not necessarily like employees shaming customers, but it definitely needs to be something where employees and owners and everybody are holding customers accountable as well, to make sure that they're keeping everybody else safe too.
I wonder for this. I think this is about a user experience. And let me go there. For, a lot of times it's about when you launch a website in my digital world, you want to make sure you get as many people to use it, to see how people are going to use the site, that is functional, that it works the way you think it worked in your head. Because no matter what, it's all about making sure that you see it through other people's eyes. And so I think right now, whether you've been open this whole time or you're not, it's important every week to think through all the steps for your employees and your customers, how they're walking through everything that you do, no matter what type of business you are. So even if you're a law office, or like I know here in Indianapolis, the base floor, the paper tech office here there are two different title companies, and they have big signage up that, hey, we only one signing person. Please wait outside. Once you see the other people leave, you can come in. They're making sure there's only one set of people in each waiting room, and those things. Walk through the procedures that is your business. If you're a retail store, and think through, is everything, and just keep doing it. Do it several times, including for your employees. How do they, when they come in, is there a checklist they have to do? Is there an answer? You know your place. If you have 30 employees, you're going to have to treat those 30 employees differently than if you only have 3 employees. And it just depends on your culture. But you better believe it that people are unfortunately incentivized right now because they're wanting to get back to work. Or at least I hope that they want to get back to work, and they're wanting to be back to some of what that norm was, whatever that may be in the new normal. They're going to be incentivized to not tell you the truth, not tell you when they feel it. And if they're sick, they can't be on the show floor. They can't be working. They need to go home. They need to be quarantined, even if it's not COVID, which it most likely isn't. A lot of times it's not. You need to be thinking through it. And this is actually a good step for us as consumers, as business owners, to actually think through. Let's think through the user experience in every way and do it often. And we have to do it through the goggles of health. We have to do it through the goggles of sales. We have to do it through the experience of making sure that we're as frictionless as possible. This is the time to do that. And this is part of the reopen, but it's also part of the huge opportunity that we have, because it's not just reopening, it's restarting. And it's the birthing of, hey, what is this new business I'm going to have? The business that was on March 1st, it's gone. So let's focus on new experiences and sharpening and getting better experiences as we go.
I agree, Nate. I gotta like the comment of birthing. It's a birthing of everything, right? We're starting over. So I agree.
All right, number 5.
I'm gonna use that.
All right, number 5, gentlemen. Here we go. All week you've been walking it through us. You walked us through how you'd get prospects, how you'd make sure that they truly are good leads, and you qualified them to make sure. And then we made sure, okay, how do you make sure you get your spot and they trust you and they understand that you bring value to them. And so now the question is, it's time to put up or shut up. Time to get that presentation, that proposal, to actually stand in front of them virtually or in person and start talking to them about what you're selling. And in this case, in our world, you're presenting to them an opportunity to change how they take payments and maybe change totally how they run their business, and to better them and add that value that you were proposing yesterday. How do you bridge into a presentation or a proposal to start wanting, so you can get to a place where you can close, which we'll talk about later. So this is just about, what do proposals look for? How do you put them together? Are they in paper? Are they PDF? Are they just verbal? What does a proposal look like for you as you're reaching out to new businesses to do new business? Danny Shard, do you want to start us out?
Sure. Yeah. Proposals, it can be a variety of different ways, right? I mean, obviously you've got pricing proposals, then you've got equipment proposals, you've got reopening proposals. So there's a variety of things that you can do to show a merchant several different ways to earn their business, and whichever one triggers for them. For us and for a lot of our partners, it's paper, right? And we've got a team that'll do it. And I know Brian will talk about this too, that we've got this team that'll put these proposals together for our partners to help save them time and kind of guide through a lot of the static that is all these processing fees and looking at these different and weird statements sometimes. So we'll help them with the proposals, but a lot of times they're just going back with a few different options with merchants on paper and talking through it. I think we're starting to see, and I actually talked to a partner about this yesterday, of using technology more to the advantage, even in a face-to-face sale. So using it on a tablet, obviously less contact with the consumer, right? One thing that is tough with sending proposals over electronically is a lot of times in sales, you don't necessarily just want to hand a merchant a proposal and leave or say, review this and let's talk. Because what a lot of people have found is that, especially from the merchant's perspective, these merchants will go back to their current company and just use this proposal as leverage to get them a reduced rate and kind of match what they're being offered, or they'll leave. They'll give their current company an ultimatum. So that's why a lot of partners aren't just leaving things or sending things out to a merchant. They want to review it with them. So they're going to try and do like a screen share, or even get their face-to-face, pull it up on a tablet, and kind of keep it there without just literally handing it to them and giving them the ammunition to go to a competitor. But there's several different ways to propose things to merchants, and just depends on what that trigger is for them.
Brian Linke, how do you make those proposals? What is your current workflow, and how do you see that? And how do you see that changing? And you've even done this. You work with merchants that aren't local to you. How does that change from when you're in person to when you have to do it virtually, when you can't actually go to their location of business?
This is going to be good.
Again, I just think that, being a normal person, one of the things that we do at PayProTech, we do the cost analysis, right? You get a statement, it goes into our analysis team, and they do an analysis. And what I tell people, and like Danny said, to drop something off, I mean, you're basically just giving them a bullet in their gun to use against you, right? It can say this, but if you're just going to drop it off and walk out the door, I think it's going to work against you. I think what has to happen there is you have to have a relationship with that person to be able to give me 5 minutes. Let's sit down, over coffee, over lunch, over whatever it is, and we'll briefly talk about it. And then if it doesn't make sense, I'll give you an elbow bump and we'll walk out. But again, I just think you have to. Selling is hard. Okay, let's not sugarcoat it. It's not an easy thing, and I don't think there's any secret sauce that you can use. I think every merchant is different, and sometimes I hit it off really well with certain merchants and certain agents, and there are certain ones that I don't, and the ones that you don't, you move on.
So how important is, when I put a proposal together for a merchant, and I'm putting together specifically, I always want to make sure that there's comparison. This is where you are now. This is where you will be with me. And so that is whether this is what you pay now in your processing fees, this is what you'll pay with me, or this is where you are currently with your features of your POS and point of sale system, and this is where you're going to be when you're done. And so I want to make sure I communicate that clearly and help them understand. I like complete transparency. When you're making a proposal to someone and you're making sure they understand what they're buying, how are you setting that out? How are you framing that compared to where they are now and where they want to be? Is it line items? Is it always a piece of paper, or do you find you're doing it all? But what is the most important? The verbal, how you're talking through it, or the presentation and the piece of paper that you're handing them or sending to them through email?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think some of our analysis are a little bit. I think they're a little bit more convoluted. I think some of it has to be a little bit more simplistic. Because I point out just a couple of things. Look at the percentage that we're saving you. Look at the monthly savings. All the other fees and everything in there. I think it confuses people. I think people look at it and they're like, okay, what am I paying? So I just kind of pick out like 2 or 3 things on the analysis to talk about. And then on the other side, you just have to earn the trust of that person and sit down and have a conversation.
What do you say, Danny? What are the things that are most important to you when it comes to making sure they understand what is happening and what's going on with the proposal?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really being thorough, and again, kind of not leaving it in their hands for them to dissect it themselves. I mean, Brian, he's one of the most seasoned salespeople that I've ever met, and he still takes the basic approach, and I just don't think that changes. And what I mean by the basic approach is still like get in front of them. You hear him say, be a normal person. And that's what we're talking about. It's like, get in front of them, have a conversation, right? And it's your job as a partner and as a salesperson to kind of dissect it for them and explain it in terms that they'll understand, without kind of getting into the weeds and making it over confusing. Because really, you just hand a proposal to somebody. They're going to be like, what is this? They're probably only looking at one number at the bottom, and that's total savings. And as a good salesman, that's really all you want them to think about, right? All the details that are on these proposals, a lot of that, in my opinion, is fluff. And it's just to kind of show a person how you got to these numbers. But that's really all the business cares about. And that's what Brian is really talking about too, is focusing on this and kind of educating them on that. And then really, developing a relationship and driving the sale forward from there. You got to ask for the sale, right? You got to get to that point in the conversation. And the proposal is really just kind of a guide to get you there.
It's about making, for me, I get probably 3 or 4 proposals a week for all kinds of things, sometimes software, sometimes third-party companies that want to come in and do business for us or whatever. And so I look at a lot of proposals, and I take a lot of sales calls just because I want to see what other people are doing and look at exposure. And one of the things I say is, in a busy world, make sure you understand what sets yourself apart when it comes to the proposal. So if you're walking into a restaurant that has 15 locations and you're moving, they're each doing $100,000 a month in each location, there's a different type of proposal that's needed there than when you're walking into a new location of a person that's just starting their first business. Because expectation, if they've had people making proposals for them and they are printed and glossy and they're flying in the CEO from New York and Manhattan and they've come in with their suits and ties and they have certain expectations. It doesn't mean you have to do it that way, but understand what they've experienced and what their expectations are. So if you're a single location in small town Midwest versus you're presenting something to someone who's working on Fifth Avenue on the 4th floor of one of the major towers there in Manhattan, it's a different presentation. So you have to think through, okay, how do I make sure that proposal, that presentation fits their expectation? This is about what Brian's always saying. Make sure, read the room and read your audience, because proposals are only as good as how they are received. It has what you think, it's all about reader's response, it's listener's response. It has nothing to do with how I present. And so if you don't respond the way I want you to, it's not your fault, it's my fault. I've got to figure out how to change that proposal. And sometimes we're going to have some hit and misses. When you have presentation and proposal hit and misses, guys, how do you respond? How do you do self-awareness? And how have you changed how you put proposals or do proposals in your career as salesman?
Well, first let me go back, and you made a great point there. I think one thing that our agents do not have at PayProTech, we do not have territories, right? So you can basically pick your niche type market that you want to go attack. Right. And I'll give you a perfect example. And I just got lucky with this, is when I first started out in New York City selling long distance. It was the MCI Sprint, name of the company I worked for was Cable and Wireless. And my territory, we had territories back then, was right in Hell's Kitchen, right? 14th to 49th Street from Broadway over west. So I was in there with just when you walked in, there's the guy, smoking a cigarette, and I could sit down with him. He'd have an egg timer. He'd turn it over, and he's like, go, right? Whereas what you were talking about on the Upper East Side at Trump Towers, where you got to get through 16 secretaries to get to. I mean, that just wasn't my thing. Right, I just wasn't the proposal thing. So I think again, to our agents out there, we don't have to, we don't tell you that you have to stay somewhere and sell there. So I think that you need to think about what your niche market is and where you're comfortable going, and who the kinds of people that you're comfortable talking to, and hit those rather than just go fly by the seat of your pants into something that you're not comfortable with.
Totally agree with Brian. I mean, and partners have, I think that's what makes salespeople so great is they're always able to pivot and to adjust and change their approach depending on the type of merchants and what they see as some of their major pain points, even just after their first initial conversations. But I mean, Brian makes a great point there. A lot of partners are trying to do that as best they can.
Well, and a lot of our partners that we're interviewing basically, or they're interviewing us, I guess, whatever. I get asked that all the time. I get asked that all the time. Do you have territories? The answer is no. So, go sell something to somebody. But again, I think it's important, because I just wouldn't be, myself personally, I'm just not comfortable, going into some high-rise office building, where I've got to get through, 10 people to get to the decision maker. I want to walk into the guy smoking a cigarette and sit down and talk to him. That's who I want to talk to.
I love it. I want to walk in and talk to the guy who's smoking a cigarette. That is the ultimate picture right there. I love that a lot. Last thought on proposals and presentations is be yourself. So Brian always says, be a person, be a normal person. One of the things is just be yourself, be in your own skin. Don't try to be someone else. And so, like I said, I look at lots of other proposals, but then I ask the question, how would I make this proposal? How would I, because it needs to be how I feel comfortable with. Just like what Brian was saying, if you don't feel comfortable going into certain types of businesses, then don't, because they'll know and they will feel and figure out how to choose your lane. And so that, gentlemen, is another high five. As we get ready to close, we're here live every morning, right a little after 10 o'clock. We hit live, we get the stream going, and we have several of you join. I've seen several of you in there, and Vicky and Michael and made a couple comments. We would love to hear from you. A couple people have made some suggestions. I'm always coming up with ideas of things we can talk about. But Brian Linke, it is Thursday, March 14th. In our world, what that means is for our partners tomorrow, what is tomorrow for our partners?
Tomorrow's Friday, Nate.
It is Friday. Okay, so it didn't work for me.
Tomorrow's payday.
Oh,
tomorrow's payday. Tomorrow's residual day.
Yes, it is. All right, so Brian Linke, tell me, the inspiration right now, what do we want our partners to be thinking of? Tomorrow's payday. It may be a different payday. Some residuals went down a little bit because spending wasn't as much during the month of April. They're getting paid for their month of April. But in our world, what encouragement, what challenge, what things do you say to our partners as we look payday tomorrow?
Well, I can tell you this right now. My residual, personally, my residual went up. So for anybody who's listening and who's sitting there, my residual, okay, I just, I'm just kind of in a niche kind of a thing with my merchants. So, I'm not feeling sorry for anybody. Go out there and sell something. You're not going to hear from me like, okay, this, we've been trapped inside my residual went up. My processing volume has gone up. So yours can too. I mean, I'm not, I don't do anything special. I just talk to my people and I try to do the best I can and, get off the couch and get out there and sell something.
And Danny Shard, the man, the myth, the legend, from your high perch there in Colorado. What do you say to our partners as we get into payday tomorrow, and to all those who hopefully will be joining us? What do you say to encourage them here on May 14th?
This is going to be the last down that you see. We're paying April residuals, which was the toughest time. We're seeing volumes getting back to normal, and actually even increased from where we were before. So Brian's obviously positioned his portfolio very good, and a lot of you have as well. Some partners aren't that lucky, and you're going to see some drops on payday, but keep your head high because things are looking up, and you're going to see that come right back to normal next month and grow as you continue to build. So
absolutely. And let me tell you something. Yeah, when the girls and myself are complaining because the phone's ringing too much, and okay, who's answering the phone? Okay, those are good things, and that's starting to happen a lot more now than it was before. So things are really looking up at Paper Tech right now.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another high five. And on that, we say, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, Friday, payday. Let's go, boys.
Discussions are there to show about nothing and everything. It's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and marketing. It's time for the high five.
The high five, y'all.